Welcome, everyone, to the Blessings Podcast. Today, I have with me the beautiful Terry Yoffe. Terry is a premier executive business and career coach based in the heart of commerce, New York City. As a coach, she is beloved. She's helped many people over her extensive career to access breakthroughs and achieve transformations. Her talent for inspiring positive change is evident in her results. But who is Terry Yoffe, the person? What makes her so good at helping others to be their best selves? Terry's philosophy has its roots in things like intrinsic motivation, healthy self-talk, resilient response to challenges, and having a mind that remains open to opportunity. It's very clear that she practices what she preaches. And I want to know, how did she get to this place in her life where she knows from experience what works and what does not in terms of personal growth and success? So we're about to find this out together. Welcome, Terry Yoffe, to the show.
Thank you, Mitzi. What an introduction. After that, I think we're done.
We know it all.
Oh, no, you laid it out perfectly. Now I don't have to dig deeper.
No, we're going to get it all. It's going to be set up for
good.
you so easily. You're going to tell us everything we need to know in order to be the best and most successful people that we can be by the time we're done with this conversation.
Oh, goodness.
So let's dig in. So can you tell us where and when you were born? What was the world like at that time?
I am older. So I was born many years ago, not in the stagecoach era, however.
There were motor vehicles. That's good.
Oh, yes. yes, definitely. I was born and raised in Queens, Kew Garden Hills, a very small community of not very diverse people. I went to a public school. My junior high school was diverse and very different than my surroundings or where I went to public school. And it was kind of interesting. And then I went to Forest Hills High School, which again was not very diverse. And I will quote one of my clients when I asked her what was one of her biggest challenges. And she said, I survived my childhood.
Okay.
I will go with that.
That sounds pretty juicy.
It was parents that really had no understanding of nurturing. They didn't know it. They didn't do it. My mother, I adored her. She set a lot of great examples. She worked, but she didn't know how to nurture. It was her way or the highway, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
I was very introverted, which, believe it or not, I still am an introvert. Although I've learned over the years, because I've been out in the public eye, to become an extrovert. But innately, I'm an introvert. So when you take that as a young person and you don't have a lot of friends, you know how kids can be. I was very sensitive. I cared about other people. I think my original first episode of my podcast, I talked about myself and that I made a friend in junior high school who had hearing aids. So she talked a little fun. She didn't have very many friends. I befriended her. And I really liked her, maybe because I felt like an underdog. I had some friends. I never fit in, ever. Whatever that reason was, we had family that lived on the other side of the tracks. They were well-to-do. We got their hand-me-downs, which were fine. I looked great. And I kind of saw that horizon and said, somewhere in my little mind, I want to go there. I didn't want to stay here. And I went away to college. I really struggled. I think I was depressed. I came home and went to FIT. Even in college, I didn't fit in.
Okay. I'm
Yet
going to
a lot.
stop you for a second. I'm very curious about going back just a little bit into your earlier life. Do you have any particular stories about your childhood? Something that might have happened that would help to characterize it for us?
I think one of the really nicer stories, my parents were not abusive at all. They gave us everything, what they could afford. We did not want for anything other than nurturing and the kind of love we would have hoped for.
Mm.
But the outer, I think what I loved was my father worked 2 or 3 jobs. He wasn't around. I really didn't know him very well at all. If anyone to ask me about him, I really couldn't tell you much. My mother came from a family of narcissists. Every one of them, they were all beautiful people. So growing up, it was we had to look a certain way. We had to be beautiful. That was the self-worth.
On the outside.
Yeah,
Beautiful, you
of
mean.
course.
Mhm.
Yes. Nobody in my family looked on the inside. But every Saturday, even though my mother worked, my family is part of the Schubert family of theaters.
Oh, okay.
And my mother would take my sister and I every Saturday to lunch, shopping, and to the theater. So we kind of grew up going to the theater. Every Saturday, we did that, the 3 of us. And to this day, my sister goes to the theater all the time. I don't go that often, but she goes and sees everything. So that was kind of nice in its own way.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of friends. And again, I was different, and I can't even pinpoint what that means to be different. I just knew I didn't belong. And when I came home, I went to school, I graduated, I got a job in retailing. Again, if you're in the fashion world, you can be beautiful, right? I think that was an unconscious place for me.
Mm.
From there, I had many jobs. So a significant emotional event, couple. I met a guy, we went together, we got engaged. I was very insecure. I held on to him, probably because nobody else would love me. That's how I felt.
And how old were you?
Probably in my 20s.
Okay.
In my 20s.
Was this the first serious relationship you had?
Yes. And we were getting married, and 6 weeks before the wedding, he broke up with me.
Oh.
Which was very devastating. And I should have understood something about myself back then. I actually took the money that I had saved and went off to Europe for the summer.
Good for you.
I don't know what made me go. I really don't. I had never been away like that. I went by myself. I traveled by myself. I met people along the way, and it was a fabulous experience for me.
Did you feel like you fit? How were you feeling in terms of your fitting in then? Was it one of the first times you felt like you fit in?
I went by myself.
Yeah.
So I made friends along the way. I found out that I could be independent. I mean, a lot of people with a breakup like that would go hide in a corner for a year and cry.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. So something in me later on in my many years of therapy, I had a strength. I had a resilience. I think growing up in my environment, I had to fend for myself. And even though my mother worked, my father worked, we had people that cooked for us, cleaned for us. So we were not the norm in that neighborhood where most of the mothers stayed home.
Mm.
And I remember, and this was very hurtful, I went to go see a friend, and the mother said, "I'm sorry, she has to clean, not like you." I didn't ask for the housekeeper, but my parents worked. Somebody
Yeah.
had to take care of us. Luckily, I think that was a blessing because we didn't have my mother home all the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that was a gift.
Yeah.
And my
Did you?
mother was very good at what she does. She was a bookkeeper. She
Okay.
was the breadwinner in our family.
And did you find nurturing from any of the people that came to take care of your house, like your housekeeper?
I don't really remember. They were lovely. That I do remember. My mother tried.
Yeah.
She was nurturing in some ways. She just didn't grow up with that. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know it, if you don't have it, you can't give it. And I came back, this guy and I started seeing each other again. And then a really significant thing happened. I think two people changed the trajectory of my life. My friend had an apartment in the city and was living there. And her roommate left and she called me and said, Terry, I said, I'm there. I was gone. That was the first real trajectory for me. I moved into the city immediately. I lived with her. It was liberating. My parents were, my mother, they were very strict in a lot of ways. They didn't let us do a lot of things. So all of a sudden, I became free.
Mm.
And it was the start of my growing up.
Mm.
Living in the city, being on my own, doing things I wouldn't even tell anybody about. But that was how I grew up,
Yeah.
right? That was how I grew up. Whatever I did, that was part of my path. And actually, through this friend, I found a therapist. And when he said to me, you should come 3 times a week, I left his office and could have been somebody told me I had cancer. That's
Wow.
how traumatized I was. 3 times a week.
You thought he was telling you that you had a lot of problems?
I did.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't know it at the time.
Right.
I started going to him. He was very Freudian. And after a while, I realized he wasn't talking to me. And I said to him, aren't you supposed to tell me what to do? I didn't know. And he said, yes, I can tell you, but the next time it happens, you won't know what to do. I spent the next 7 years on a couch, ripping up my guts, if I can be so graphic.
Yes.
I mean, the walls were this far out, and it was chipping away and chipping away. And I would, so when my apartment, I was there for a while, a long time, and then I found my own apartment.
Okay. So what
And
about what happened to the guy that broke up with you?
I have no idea.
No, I mean at that time, did you stop seeing him?
We started seeing each other again. And one time he called me and said, hey, want to get together? And I said, you know what? Pardon me, fuck you. We're done.
Yay,
And
I'm glad you said that.
that was the end of him.
Yeah.
I had another significant relationship with a guy that left his wife for me.
Wow.
I really cared, but he could not sustain it because he felt guilty. He went home. And after that, I just dated. There was nobody really significant,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a good time. I
Mhm.
loved when I went into my own apartment. That was a big difference. There was
Mhm.
another growth at that juncture.
So what were you doing for work that you were able to get your own place?
I worked. I had job in the fashion industry. I would do fashion shows. And then I actually wasn't working. I am somebody, and I don't know how or why, that if something closes, another door opens.
Mm.
I can't explain it. It's like when you're back against a wall, a door opens.
Mhm.
And maybe because I was just out there and I said yes
Mhm.
to almost everything because I had to make money.
Yes.
I had to pay rent. And I lived, in those days, rents weren't what they are today, obviously.
Yeah.
I had beautiful apartments, beautiful. They weren't, on very nice streets in very nice neighborhoods. And I had a job again through this one or that one. I got a job with a fabric company. I was there for 7 years. So I worked, and then they fired me.
Oh boy. So were you in your 20s when you were going through the therapy, and then you
I was in
transitioned?
20s into my 30s,
Okay.
early 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And I was fierce.
So in this time, you were really discovering yourself, it sounds
Yes,
like.
exactly. I spent a lot of years.
Yeah. So you were, as a child, somewhat repressed and very introverted and very guarded, it sounds like.
Yes, I did not trust people, and I
Mm,
didn't, even though I was out, I didn't collect people. I
mm,
had friends who were there. I made
mhm,
some really nice friends. I had a great social life. And if I didn't, I was okay being home. I loved my space,
mm,
which I still do,
mhm,
loved my space.
mhm.
And I could stay in a weekend
Yeah.
and be perfectly fine
Yeah.
listening to music, doing whatever, but I grew up.
Yeah.
Maybe not a path that others would take. I traveled for work. I did get a position later on, but I traveled the country with this one company. So I did do traveling.
In your 20s
I
and 30s,
Yeah,
this was?
yeah, yeah.
Very nice.
And then in my later on, another significant event happened with another person that again changed the trajectory of my life. I had a friend, she passed away, unfortunately, 2 years ago, who we met selling at Bloomingdale's in Queens. And she got married to a gentleman. The gentleman's sister, husband, they got divorced. He moved to New York. I knew who he was. I had met him because, I knew my friend. She gave him my number. He called. We dated. We broke up. We dated and got married. So a second person that really changed the trajectory of my life. And I got married, and he had 3 kids. We're married 40 years this year.
Oh, wow.
So long. And I honestly pinch myself at how grateful I am, because somewhere in my mind, I look back, and if I ever would have imagined having this life, I would have wanted it. I worked towards it, but I don't know if I ever would have had it. When my career really took off in 83, when
Okay.
this person I know, I met her at a luncheon, and she called me and asked me if I wanted to come work for her doing sales. Never
Mhm.
did sales in my life. Never. I could have said no, and my life would have changed 100%.
Mhm.
I said, sure. That was what I always did. Sure. I
Yeah.
got to do real estate. I got to do this. I always said, sure. You know,
You're open
either
to opportunities,
I
you
was, or
know?
I was dumb. I'm not sure which it was. And I went to work there at Women's Wear Daily for 3
Mm,
years and took a $600,000 portfolio to $1.3 million
nice.
before I decided they weren't paying me enough. I got to that point, and another opportunity came my way. Sitting next to, again at a luncheon, a woman said to me, I'm at the New Yorker, which was bought by Condé Nast. You want to come work for me? I said, oh. And obviously the salary was much different. I said, sure. And I went, and it was a little rocky with this person. She, for whatever the reason, she hired me and then felt it was time to get rid of me
Uh-oh.
and tried very hard. And I'd go home and cry. And my husband said, "Why don't you leave?" I said, "Why would I leave? I didn't do anything."
Right.
I stayed around. I stood my ground. They fired her and kept me.
So maybe she was threatened by you.
Could have been. I have no idea why.
Interesting. What did you do there at the New Yorker?
I was a salesperson. I was there for, I was a Condé Nast for 11 years.
Okay.
I did phenomenally well, really, really well.
And that was like advertising sales?
Clients really liked me because I had integrity and I had honesty. And that's my two core values. And they liked working with me. And I did phenomenally well. And then, the golden handcuffs. And one day, my husband at that point had been saying, go into your own business, become a hired gun where other people could. And I said, no, 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 until I looked around and realized I really wanted to play in my own sandbox. And I left to start my own business. And I did very well for a long time. And then that dried up. I didn't know what I was going to do.
So you were in your own business, you were doing
sales. I was a hired gun, so to speak. If people needed somebody as a fill-in, somebody was on a maternity leave or they were out, companies called me, they knew me, or small little magazines didn't have anybody.
Okay.
They called me. And that was great until it dried up. And then I didn't know what I was going to do. And because I had spent so many years in analysis and finding my own mind and discovering it, and everybody's mind is the same. It's not different. It's a piece of machinery. I call it the first computer. I said, oh, coaching. No, I was going to go back to school and become a therapist, but that didn't really go my way. I found coaching. And I went from being up here to being in the basement. I had to go back. And I wasn't 25. Back to get a certificate. I take courses. And then I embarked on a 6-month certification program, which was very intense, with a oral and a written exam. And people laughed at me. Well, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Because I want to. I passed. I joined the International Coach Federation, which is an organization of coaches that do the standards and ethics.
Okay.
I joined the New York City ICF board. I went from secretary to president.
Wow.
And when my term was up, 2 years, I left. And also in my years of working, I was a member of an organization called ONE, which is now called She Runs It, and started help them. I was co-founded a mentoring program for them. So I was always trying to enrich, right, and help, and certainly becoming a coach was part of that.
What was your impetus to become a coach, from being in sales to then helping other people to achieve their dreams?
I felt that even in sales, I was helping people, maybe different, making money for them, but I was helping people.
Yeah.
I was helping them create change for them and to be noticed in their bottom line.
Yeah. And that's probably why they liked you and why you were so successful. I
was genuine.
Yeah. Because you were making it a win-win for everyone. It wasn't like you were just trying to make money.
Exactly. Exactly. And, there were salespeople that were out just for the money, not me. And I knew that. And salespeople would call and say, you know what, I'm going to work with that Terry Yoffe. I've really heard great things about her. And it was great. When I was there, I traveled manage. I traveled the world pretty
Yeah.
much on their dime. I got to fly the Concorde. I got to fly in
Ooh.
private planes. It was a very interesting experience for me.
It sounds like when you said when you were a little girl, you wanted to be like your relatives that lived on the right side of the tracks, the
You're right.
well-to-do.
And I fit in.
Yeah.
I fit
So
in.
you found your place.
I did. I'm not because it's money or any
Mhm.
of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was a different mindset of
Mm-hmm.
people
Yeah.
that I couldn't identify with.
It's
And
an
when
energy, right? It's an energy.
yeah, when I moved to the city, I'm guessing there was that energy
Yeah.
and a lot to do and a lot to be around. And even if I was in my apartment, I belonged. I felt
Mm.
like I had found my belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really grew up in the city. That's where I grew up.
I love it. You know,
And
it's funny. I was talking to someone the other day who lives in the city, and this person was telling me that his perception of the city is that it's a transient place, that it's a place where people are always from somewhere else, or they're on their way somewhere else, either in
mm,
or out. But for you, the city is your home.
I don't particularly, I'm not sure that's an accurate
Yeah.
statement because people do live here.
Yeah.
And the amount of structure going up of condos, co-ops, rentals, and how much they cost
Mm.
is mind-boggling. Yet people are buying them. So it's not transit
Yeah.
to them. There's something about the city. People say, would you move? Where am I going to go? It's home. You're right. It's
Yeah.
home.
It's home.
And I've had wonderful, wonderful experiences. I've had some that are not so great. And each experience, each turn brought something different
Mm-hmm.
to me. This was my path,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I failed. I mean, I didn't fail, but I lost jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But something always materialized.
Because there's so much there.
One door closed, another one would open. And I'd
Mm-hmm.
say yes. Even if I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
I'd
It's like,
make it happen.
yeah, it feels like New York is almost a portal of sorts.
For me,
A portal, a place of energy where things are coming to you, readily.
some came readily and some I had to struggle with. I mean, I
Ah.
was let down a lot, getting fired, certainly mostly for things I did not do.
Mm.
Male bosses for whatever the reason, most of them. I became, through therapy, through different modalities. I studied Buddhism. I went on a Buddhist retreat, knew nobody, knew nothing. I saw it somewhere up at the San Cristobal Mountains of New Mexico. Didn't know a soul. Had my sleeping bag, slept on the slab on a bus.
Wow. How old were you when you did this?
I must have been my late 20s, early
Wow.
30s,
Okay.
when all by myself.
Yeah.
And, here's this New York sophisticate going, and it was silent. You couldn't talk. They
Oh.
woke you up at 4:30 in the morning to meditate. You ate breakfast, but it was all silent. And I met some great leaders, Joseph Goldstein, who's pretty well known in the Buddhist environment, Jack Kornfeld,
Ooh.
and Sharon Salzberg. They came and they spoke. And the bathrooms, you went in with 3 people, no privacy. So, you had to let down all the things that keep the guard up. It's like you didn't shake hands and said, oh, hi, my name is. You only met people and got close to people through eye contact.
Mm. And I
Or
imagine through the
right,
feeling of
exactly,
one another's
exactly.
energy. What did you
And
learn about yourself there?
I certainly learned that I was a survivor,
Mm.
sleeping on a sleeping bag, and that was good on a slab. Most people slept in, I don't know what, in the rains, they got soaked. I didn't. I was on a slab in a bus. Going to the bathroom, you had to go out back. It was rural, really rural. The food was good, but it was really rural. And even though I don't meditate that often, I still believe in Buddhism and the
Mm-hmm.
process of it and what it's all about.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience that you really can't tell very many people about it.
Yeah.
Because
I
they
think
wouldn't,
Buddhism is really interesting to me. Yeah. And it does take it's very deep. It's more of a philosophy than a
right,
religion.
of course, not a religion, right?
Yeah. And that's really cool that you did that. Do you believe in reincarnation?
I think so. I think in some other life, I was definitely something else. I do believe my own belief. I'm not telling other people that we're here on earth for a reason, that there are definitely lessons to be learned.
Oh yeah.
And if, they keep showing up, right,
Yes.
in the outer, they keep showing up. And if you pay attention and you learn the lesson, then you go on to something else.
That's right.
But I do think, even though my upbringing was difficult, I learned a lot of perseverance, survival, how to take care of myself. And I think that has gotten me through my life
Mm-hmm.
and all the twists and turns in
Did
it.
anyone, when you were a child, did anyone ever tell you they loved you?
My mother did. Yes. Oh, absolutely. She always told us she loved us. So she wasn't a bad mother at all. She gave us everything,
Mm-hmm.
everything, but that's all she could give.
Mm-hmm.
I think she adored us
Mm-hmm.
as long as we fit the mold of her eyes.
Yeah.
Being attracted. That was what that family was about. That your self-worth was based on what you looked like, how you dressed.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people fall into that. Now, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying you shouldn't look good and dress well, but if that's the only thing that you think is wrapped up in your self-worth and value, then there's a problem.
Absolutely. Yes. There has to be a balance, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. And I was a coach. I still am. And then a couple of years ago, I thought, what else can I do? And ironically, so here's ironic. I thought about podcasting. One of my clients decided she wanted to create a legacy within her company. What could she do? So she came up with a program, and kicking it off, there were two coaches who did two webinars. I did one, I did two, and then I did a podcast with her. And
then you got the bug, right?
Then I got it. And through whatever means, I met someone, and she created my podcast for me. And that was in 21, and we launched in January of 22, a year and a half ago.
I love it. And your whole mission is about creating change. And you
It
say
is.
you want to do it one person at a time, right?
Yes, I wish I could do more, but
Yeah.
life doesn't work that way. And it's really in their corner of the world, right? You can't, unless I'm interviewing a Michelle Obama or, a president or somebody that has created it worldwide. I base it on, again, my first episode was why. why I chose this podcast, this title, what it means to me, because I do believe on whatever level I've been creating change and making a difference, even with that friend with the hearing aids,
Yeah.
being sensitive, being aware. Maybe because, as I said, I felt like an underdog
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah.
And I'm very passionate about it because you can create change at any age. As everyone probably knows, I'm older. And look, ageism, you can throw it out the window. Just because you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever, doesn't mean you have to stop making an impact.
Right. Absolutely. It's not about your age, it's about your energy.
You're right. Your
know?
energy, what you project. I think people that retire, and again, people love to retire. They look forward to playing golf, going to the clubhouse, doing all of that. That is just not me. And if people do that, that's great. Yeah, I think for people to nurture and grow, they have to think of not what's my next golf date, or where am I going to fit pickleball in, or canasta, or going to the clubhouse to have dinner with friends, but what's aspirational? What can they really look forward to? What feeds their mind?
Right. It's about the mind and the vibrance of the mind. That is what you want to keep going. I love that.
And
yes.
I'm so grateful. I've met people like you. Really, I did a podcast this morning with a young lady of 22. I met her on LinkedIn. She is unbelievable. Her wisdom, her insights are of somebody 50. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have, and I have another young person on, both of them are in August. Wouldn't it be nice to have young people's thought process? What I would never meet the people I meet if I was playing canasta. I don't play cards and I don't play golf, but if I were just retired.
Yeah. But that's been your philosophy for your whole life, keeping the door open, saying yes to opportunities.
That is
true. And that has served you very well.
Who knows what's going to come through a door?
How do you know? How does a person know, like in your coaching experience, when to say yes and when to say no to an opportunity?
A client or me personally?
Either, whatever comes to mind.
I think your gut can tell you. Back in the day, I said yes. There was very little I said no to, because when you're unemployed and you need to make money, you're going to say, other than if, you want to sell your body, you're going to say yes to most things and try them. If I was going to get a paycheck, I was going to say yes, unless it was illicit, illegal, or whatever.
Yeah, but it's about, you just said the word try, which I know is the name of your coaching as well. But that's really significant, because if you don't try it, then you don't know if it's a fit.
Exactly. I mean,
and you can listen to your gut, but sometimes you do need to actually get in there and get your hands dirty and see.
You're right. And sometimes when you say yes to something and it's the wrong thing, you have to be willing to leave the table, so to speak.
And you'll know, because you'll get a feeling, you'll know. Your gut will tell you,
When you get into a situation, you say, oh, and I've done that, does not feel right.
Right.
But look, I can't say that my life was a trajectory of stardom, I'm just using that word loosely, from beginning to end, because it certainly wasn't. I had a lot of crying, a lot of fears, a lot of whatever, but I learned that it didn't stop me.
Right. Yes. That builds character. So in my experience, people who are so committed to helping others at some level are really also trying to help themselves. So I'm going to ask you the tough question. How are you, if you look back at your life, trying to help yourself?
I definitely think at this stage, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. When I started my podcast, I said, if it works, great. If it doesn't define me. It's not going to change my status as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps, yes, in its early stages of helping people, maybe not coaching right away. I was looking to help myself, and certainly getting out of your own way can help you as well.
Mm.
You have to. I took care of my mother. I was her caregiver for a really long, long time. And it was not an easy task at all, at all. For certainly watching somebody she got dementia, and watch her go from this strong person to nothing was heart-wrenching.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And yet I felt that she gave what she could give, and I owed her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was certainly in a position to be able to and take care of her until she died. And I think in doing that, it helped me let go of whatever remnants I had left of what I went through in growing up. It
Because you
did
were able to
certain-
see her in a different way.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And you come to the conclusion you can't blame your parents for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know,
not
you
if you
gotta-
want to, not if you want to grow. I mean,
Right.
you can't, you'll just stay stuck.
That's very true. You can't. You can if you want to, but
Right.
well, what's it going to do? It keeps you stuck.
That's right.
They
Yeah.
were good people.
Yeah.
They tried. They couldn't give at most people. You can't give what you don't have or never knew. It's
Right.
just impossible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I changed. I am much more compassionate with people. I care deeply about people on many levels. And I think when you're going through therapy, and as a child, you didn't want to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because children and teenagers don't know how to deal with it. They don't have the resources to figure out how to handle it.
Yeah. So do you think that you are now the person that you needed when you were a child?
I do. I think that I remember when I had to take my oral exam to pass my certification. It was by phone. And I said to my little girl, you're going out to play. You will not be here during this interview. And I made a conscious effort to send her out so that the little girl wouldn't trip me up in doing my oral certification. I had to coach 2 people.
So you had to tell your inner little girl
yes,
to go play
right,
outside
right,
and be somewhere
right,
else.
exactly.
What a
And
great technique for people to think about it in that way,
because it's mostly, when I work with my clients, I do have an exercise, but we have many voices. We're not one voice. And I can tell in listening to my clients which voice is showing up, whether the little person's voice or the adult voice is showing up. And sometimes my little girl voice shows up, but pretty much I run the show. Most people, it's their child that runs the show, not the adult them. When you listen to them and talk to them and see what the choices they're making. So, yeah, I think that if I thought about it and I go back to that time in Queens, I certainly became that person that I wished I had been then, right? I wished I had been stronger. I wish I had been more outgoing. I wish I had felt more secure and confident, but I didn't.
So now, as the person that you are today, would you describe yourself as nurturing?
I do. I am. I'm very caring for my family. I got married late. My husband had been divorced. He had 3 daughters. They're all grown, obviously, and there are grandchildren.
Mm.
And I'm very blessed in
So what
that
kinds of
we
things
are
do you do for them that you enjoy doing, that you find nurturing?
when they were kids, circumstances came about that 2 of my grandchildren, their mother and father had separated. And the father was going to come home. And this is when they were 8, 9, 10, and he disappointed them,
Mm.
2 of them. And I turned to my husband and said, just let's take them away. And so there are 3 grandchildren. That was the year we started going on skiing trips with them.
Oh.
Every year. I couldn't ski anymore at that point. I had hurt my back, so I was out of commission. But every year we would take them away and we'd have a week with them. And it was delightful. We got to see them really grow up. My one granddaughter, who's going for her PhD at University of Washington. So if she drives to work to her lab every day, she calls us.
Aw.
Hi, how are you? How you doing? And then my other granddaughter got wind of it and said, what? This one's the golden child, because she calls all the time. She said, I'm going to call once a week too. So she calls, she lives in New Jersey. The others live out west.
Okay.
My grandson, a little less. I call him, I say, okay, it's time to talk. They're very respectful.
Mm.
They appreciate us very much. For each one's 13th birthday, I took them on a trip alone.
Oh, wow.
My granddaughter wanted to go to Europe. My grandson, he was a big Chicago Bears fan. I took him to Soldier Field in Chicago. And my other granddaughter, we went to Panama.
Wow.
So we've gotten to spend a lot of time with them. And now they're all grown, doing their thing. But it was very special. I didn't have that. I didn't get married young. I didn't have my own children. And that was okay.
Yeah.
And I honestly look back, Mitzi, and think, I don't think I ever would have gotten married. I think all of those relationships that didn't work out, I don't think I wanted to get married. After seeing what I saw, I did not want that. And I don't really thought I wanted children either. And I guess over years in therapy, things changed for me.
Yeah.
So,
and it is interesting that you're all about change, and that is the theme of your life.
it is.
Mm-hmm.
I try to change every year.
I love change. I change all the time.
But, even if I change, my hair, or change how I look, or
Sure.
something, I create a persona. And, I think with a new persona, you can grow into it.
Right. Right. Yeah. But I think what's interesting about the word change is as I was thinking about it, it made me think about something that I use in my classroom in the past. And it's the idea that we have different levels of thinking. So there's something called Bloom's taxonomy. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a model that is typically displayed as a triangle, and it shows the levels of human thinking, right? So at the bottom of the triangle, the easiest thing that you can do to think is to just remember something, to recall it. And then as you move up the triangle, it becomes a little bit more difficult. You have to think harder. So you'd analyze, you might organize, you might categorize, you'd evaluate. And then at the very, very top of the pyramid, the highest level thinking is creation. And that, in essence, is what change is. You're creating something new. But for some reason, that is where people get stuck. It is the hardest thing to do. And my theory is because it's at the top of the thinking chart. Yeah, it's the hardest thing to do. It's interesting. So why do you think it is so hard for people to change?
Several things. One, people are used to a certain way of being, right? Even how they look,
Mm.
how they dress, and that's the basic.
It's a comfort zone.
Right, exactly. For people to imagine being different or changing, there's fear, what do I want to change? What's it going to do for me? Blah, blah, blah. So they keep themselves stuck. It's an effort. You
Yes.
got to look inside. You got to do the work,
You have to think.
right?
Yeah, that's true.
And I have spent my entire life being inside
Mm.
in a way. My therapist once said to me, you're like a person that's got this scout that goes up ahead and looks around to see if it's safe to move forward.
Mm.
And then you go. I'm always thinking, we were in Chiang Mai in Thailand. I was on an elephant and I looked down and said, okay, what if the elephant falls over? What do I need to do to survive? So I'm already thinking, what's a way out? What if it goes over? Do I jump? Do I get crushed? Do I jump for the trees? And even when I talk, certainly in communication, if I'm really having a conversation that needs thinking about,
Mhm.
I'll think about it as I go. I don't go, blah, blah. And I thought that was very interesting of him to say that.
That is very interesting. Where do you think that comes from?
I think growing up, our household, there was a lot of yelling, a lot of an energy that it wasn't smooth, it wasn't calming, it was anxiety producing. So I'd always be kind of moving, shifting,
Making sure
listening,
you had a way
right,
out.
safe,
Yeah.
to be safe. Even though I wasn't unsafe, it
Yeah.
was an emotional,
Yeah.
certainly not physical,
Right.
emotional.
Yeah.
And I just think it's part of how I work.
Mhm.
And I think changing only happens if you want to change.
Mm.
No matter how old I am, I will be learning until they put me away.
Mhm.
And after that, who knows what I'll be thinking? How I
Yeah.
can stay me and not turn to ash. Oh,
Well, if you believe in what the Buddhists believe, then you're in a
right,
wheel of perpetual.
right, exactly. And people that come to coaching may not understand it right away, but it is about change
Mhm.
because they come with circumstances. Well, what's happening at work, or what I can't do this and I can't do that. Work is an inanimate object. You are what bring life to the work and meaning so it's all about you. So we
Yes.
have to start with that premise that what's going on with you, that you can communicate, you can advocate, you don't feel you belong there, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
And people have to want to do the work,
Mhm. And they have to recognize that they're responsible for it.
or that there's even something there.
Right. Yeah. They have to
Yes, they have to
be
be
able to see that there's something there. You're right.
but most people are very unaware,
Mm-hmm.
very unaware. You see them on the buses with their phones,
Mm-hmm.
talking loud, doing this, walking, and it's like I stop and somebody looks at me and has this disgust look on their face, like I did something wrong, because they're not paying attention.
Yeah.
It's, certainly in New York City, it's a walking city. I am a believer in learning.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how old I am, no matter how young I was a searcher.
Mm-hmm.
That there probably was something different.
You were on
And
a bit of a quest.
I was on a quest and I'm still on it. Even though I came down from that mountain,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, if you don't go up the mountain, you don't see what's there.
Yeah.
But when you come down, you have a little bit of a different perspective
That's right.
on life.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think are the things that need to change in the world,
Oh, God.
in people, in this whole crazy thing that we live in?
That's very big.
It is very
That's a
big.
big ask. But can we bring it down a little bit?
What's the top
Yeah.
thing that people can change that improves their lives?
A lot of angry people, whatever the reason. There's so much certainly going on in this country. This country is going through some kind of a change,
Mhm.
some kind of a change. I don't know how long it will take. It's certainly everything is shifting. It's an age of shift, everything. How we did business, we no longer do. The game changers of Amazon, Uber, Airbnb. Those were the top three that really changed significantly
Mhm.
how people talk to each other. There's such a divide of people with such different perspectives that I don't really know what's going to happen. I try not to watch the news, quite frankly. I do watch it. I get the paper. I try to be somewhat intelligent, but it saps your energy. That's very negative energy.
Yes.
I mean, you look at certainly what's going on with racism, anti this, anti that. It's chaos.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I'm not sure where things are going to go.
But if you think about it, from the perspective of change, we are in a period of change.
Absolutely.
And that change is sometimes traumatic and very chaotic.
Right.
And we can only just keep a positive mind toward the idea that this is all going to lead us somewhere better. That's what I hope for.
I do too. I hope so too. It's like we're the Wild West in a way.
Mhm.
The world, power, anger, people don't treat people well. And you can create change by just smiling at somebody
Yes.
in a moment. You
Yep.
don't have to create change like you're doing with your podcast, or I'm doing, or other people are doing, like Craig Siegel is doing.
Yeah.
A simple letting people know that they're seen
Yes. Yes.
is very important.
Mm-hmm.
What does it take?
Listening to their stories,
Mm-hmm.
offering a smile, just having a positive energy yourself, which trickles out into the world. If you walk around feeling angry with a sour looking face, people can pick up on that immediately, can pick up
Right.
on that energy. If you walk around with a smile, that's infectious. Other people will pick up on that. And that's right. Those are very simple things that you can do. I
Right.
think that at the very least, we can do that. I mean, what do you think is the danger of remaining stagnant and not changing for people?
I try not to, I would say, what's the cost to people
Mm,
rather than danger? And
yeah.
I'm not, what's the cost to staying stagnant? They don't know any better. They live, Rick Tamlin was on one of my podcasts. Most people live, they self-manage every day. They manage their lives. And that's it. They're on a wheel.
Yes, they're stuck.
They're stuck. Either they don't know it and they think this is how it is, or alternatively, they know it and choose not to do anything about it because woe is me, or they're a victim, or it takes too much energy.
Or they just they're comfortable
They're
in their,
right. They're in
you
their
know,
comfort
they're stuck
zones.
in their comfort
What
zone.
I call it, the blankie with the cookies and milk. And
Yeah.
comfort zones are okay once in a while, but you've got to come out of it.
Yeah.
And I work a lot with clients on that.
Mm-hmm.
I maybe even during the pandemic, and beyond, I find that my apartment is my comfort zone.
Yeah.
It's my blankie.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, I love to crawl into bed and watch TV. That's what I do.
But the rest of the time, you're out there shaking it up.
I am a lot of times. And I have vestibular issues, which I've had for years, not that bad, but, and then I got really bad COVID, really
Mm.
bad COVID, that I had long-term COVID, and it affected caused inner dizziness. I've had it since November. It's getting better, but didn't stop me from doing a podcast. I remember I had in 17 a burst appendix where I was severely sick.
Wow.
And I could have gotten sepsis, a few more hours and I'd probably not be here. I came home on the phone with my clients. In most cases, I don't give in.
Mm-hmm.
Even though this bout with this has really affected me, and long-term COVID has had its effect. I get tired.
Mm.
And if I don't relax or do something, it will cause the inner dizziness. I've had to go on medication. I go to therapy to help it. And thank goodness, hopefully it will go away, but it's played havoc.
Mm-hmm.
But I get on a podcast. I do what I need to do.
Yeah.
I don't.
Because you can overcome your symptoms. When you have symptoms like that, you can try to do things in your life that can remind you that you have the power to heal. You're going to power through it, and you've got to keep going.
Yes, I keep going. I don't, other than when I was really sick with COVID and I sat in the bathroom and I cried. I thought I was going to die.
Oh.
Honest to God, I was so sick. I don't give in. I don't know. It's also probably not the best thing, but with this inner dizziness, I had dinner plans tonight. I canceled. I said, look, I'm tired. I had a podcast this morning. We have this, which I would not have missed. I'm getting on another call, and I've been racing and going.
Yeah.
And I get tired a lot.
Yeah. And it's okay to listen to your body and to know when you have to slow down.
There are times I wouldn't have.
Yeah.
But in this case, I have to.
Right.
Because I know what happens.
Yeah. And that's a good
So,
form of change. It's a positive change, tuning in to the inner voice and all of that.
I wish I could go out and shake people. Honest to God, I look at people and I want to grab them and say, what is wrong with you? Volunteer, do something that will bring about an ounce of change. Make a difference somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Because everybody has something they can give, How do you stay optimistic that we can actually accomplish this change with all these seemingly dark forces working against us?
There are times I don't. And what I say is, I can't control what's going on. I really can't. I can control what I can control. I can control my emotions. I can control how I conduct myself. I can control maybe and not even control, but my circle by having the podcast like you and being on people's podcasts like yours, and you're going to be on mine, and having a support system of people. I only wish the people I met live in New York.
We're going to have coffee or tea one of these days.
I honestly feel, and I don't feel this way, but a lot of people, I wish I could hug you.
I know.
That's how I feel.
But I feel like when you meet people like this, even online, like we can hug one another because we are connected. We have these connections. That energy doesn't have these boundaries.
No, you're right.
We are able to bring that. And so that's part of how I stay optimistic, is knowing that we do have a collective consciousness and connection to everyone and everything.
Right.
And it does affect, you don't have to be standing next to somebody to give them a virtual hug.
You're right.
So I think that we are moving in the right direction, and I am optimistic. I'm always of that mindset. I think growth just is happening. It does take a little bit of shaking things up, and that we're going to come through this the other side better for it. That's what I
I'm
have to
sure
believe.
at some point,
Yes.
I think over the years, I've let my guard down a lot,
Mm.
which has made me more open.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe as you get older, you say, what the hell? What is somebody going to make me vulnerable? But vulnerability, and I tell my clients, is a strength.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a weakness.
Right. And being open can only help you because being open keeps your mind open to growing, to learning new things, to realizing places where you are wrong and you need to reconsider things that you believe that may be holding you back from growth. And it also allows people and circumstances to come into your life that have just amazing benefits. Like, people that you meet online, we're so blessed to have the internet. As long, it does have its problems, of course, but the people that you could be connected to from all over this globe, that is amazing,
Right.
and so I
I
think
mean,
openness is the key. Openness is how things come in. The things can't come in if the
right.
door's closed.
No,
So
absolutely. And, through CLS, I've met a few really wonderful people that
yes.
I really love. I haven't connected with everybody, and that's okay.
Yeah. But the
Um,
people that you connect with are
mm,
meant to be, and then
I
as you
think,
keep going, that path keeps coming, and the stones will appear in front of you, and you'll take the steps, and you'll meet other people, and it just keeps going. It's so amazing.
yeah,
You know,
you're right. And I just keep going, one foot in front of the other. I'm always looking and analyzing myself. Where can I tweak myself?
Yeah.
What can I do
Yeah.
to change a little bit? And I'm open to that. People say something, and oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Let me think about that. I think one of the most interesting things to me is when someone says something that I haven't considered, or something I might have not agreed with in the past, and then they give me a different way of looking at something.
Uh-huh.
Those opportunities are what keep us advancing as humans, as a civilization, and we have to embrace that if we want to advance, if we want to keep going,
I
if we want to
agree. I
ascend.
absolutely. I think the mind is looking for food,
It is.
right?
Yep.
And if you don't feed it, it's like a flower, a
Yep.
plant. You
Yep.
have to constantly be watering it.
Yep.
Input.
Yeah, or else it'll
What?
wither. It'll wither
Right.
and
That's
die.
right. That's right.
And that's what happens to those people who are just mindlessly going through their lives.
They get
They're
old very
they do.
quickly,
They get
and they
old very
die
quickly. They
sooner than they
die.
should
They
have.
get right. And things happen to the body, like inflammation will set in, various forms of stress, and it's just not a good way to live, in my opinion. I mean, it's their choice, but
And you're right. I think everyone makes a choice in life, for sure. People look at me and say, why are you doing this? Are you stressed? Why don't you retire? You know, I could, no question about that. It's just not where I want to be,
right.
not what I want to do. I think until the day I keel over, I want to be creating change and
Yeah.
feeling useful,
Because that helps.
whatever
That
that
helps.
is. And so be it.
So what do you think are the biggest lessons that you've learned in your life?
Oh dear. Taking chances, for one, being willing to say yes, being willing to step off the ledge. So many people circle that ledge, look down, circle for a few more years, look down, and never leave it, with the hope that as they fall, something will come along to pick them up. And that's what people are doing. And they aren't willing to take a chance.
Mm,
I say, what's the worst that can happen? Doesn't work out. That's
right.
the worst.
And that's information.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
use it and move on.
I think I have stepped off that ledge so many times, and I'm still here. I've examined myself. I've been willing to put in the work. In the 7 years I was in therapy, I cried. All my friends, everyone I know is getting married. Look at me here. All those people got divorced. So you have to be willing to say, yes, I come first. It's not selfish.
Oh, yeah.
It's self-interest.
Yep.
I come first.
Yes.
If
You
I'm
absolutely have
feeling
to.
good,
Yep.
right? If I'm
That's
feeling
the only
good,
way
if
you
I'm
can help
doing
others.
good, then it's okay.
Right.
Yet I am always there for people, always. I'm always there to help people. I'm a fixer.
Mm,
Can I help you? What can I do? Do you need a name of a coach? Do you need the name of that? I'm always there to help until I realize I'm not doing that for them anymore. I am always, always willing to reach out. I'm not selfish, but certainly self-interest.
oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's about,
So,
yeah, definitely. You have to have that's self-love,
yes, I think so. I never had it, but
Mm-hmm.
I think we have to make choices. What choice do you want to make for your well-being and yourself?
Yeah.
It's choice.
Yep.
I have chosen a different kind of path that most people wouldn't have, a hard path, a very hard path. But in the end, I am where I am. And I look back and I say, yeah, that's the person I hope to be.
So what about your blessings? What are the biggest blessings in your life?
Other than my little issues, I'm very healthy. I really am. I've got, some issues, but I'm a healthy person. I'm not sick. I already had cancer. I survived that. I'm blessed that I have an incredible life. I have a lovely husband, stepchildren who are children, grandchildren. I'm loved. I'm cared for. And even though it was a difficult path, I don't think I would have changed anything.
So you wouldn't
So
be who you are if you had changed
that's
something.
true. That's true. And I'm blessed that I got to meet you. Really, I'm very serious.
Thank you. I
So
feel the same
it's
way.
lovely
Yeah.
that you connect with people. It's almost like you know them, right?
I really love when people are able to share themselves with me and also with the world, because I feel like that is how we're gonna get through this tough time, is by really seeing one another and not judging one another, just
Right.
seeing and
Well, of
saying,
course.
okay, this person's life looks like this.
Right.
That's interesting.
I was not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Everything that I got, I fought for.
Yeah. Final question.
Mhm.
First thing that pops into your mind, what's the most important thing?
For me, what's the most important thing is staying healthy.
Mm,
Because I know what it's like to not be well. I've had cancer. I had long COVID. I had a burst appendix. I really could have died.
yeah.
I've had a couple of incidences that shook me to my core. And I think health, without that, it doesn't matter what you have. So that's pretty much for me the
Mhm.
most important thing. So I
Love
know what
that.
it's like not to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you've gotten through those times and that you're doing so well in your business and in that you're doing such beautiful work in helping other people in this world. It's just, there cannot be too many people who do that. There cannot be too many light workers in the world.
Right.
We need them.
Right.
And so I'm glad you're one of them.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Terry, for your open
Thank
heart.
you. Thank you, Mitzi, for having me. I feel so honored. I appreciate it.
Thank you.